You know, the Land Rover Defender was one of the most controversial vehicles when it made its debut for the 2020 model year because Land Rover really strayed from their tried and true formula of body on frame, solid axle, old school four-wheel drive. The new Defender, of course, is unibody independent suspension, and it's turned out to be a huge success for Land Rover. They sold over 57,000 in the last few years. But what filled that gap? Well, a British company called Ineos, or Ineos, depending on how you pronounced it, actually went ahead and built a body-on-frame, solid axle, let's call it maybe a tribute to the original Defender, but with modern-day technology. And both of these vehicles come in at about $83,000, $84,000. So in this video, we're gonna put them head-to-head and see, you know, who did it better. Now, Land Rover has a number of engine options in the new Defender, all the way down from a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo up through a 5-liter supercharged V8 that makes over 500 horsepower. But this engine is one that you'll find in many units. This is called the P400. It's a 3-liter Ingenium inline-6 turbocharged engine, makes about 395 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. Of course, an inline configuration with a mild hybrid setup. Now, what I think is really cool about this comparison is both these vehicles are running a 3-liter inline-6 with the turbo, except the Grenadier's is supplied by BMW. It's the B52 3-liter inline-6. It makes 282 horsepower and 382 pound-feet of torque. So it's down quite a bit compared to the Defender, but it's also not a mild hybrid. Now let's talk about the thing everyone's commenting about, which is reliability. Look, the B58 has been in, at this point, hundreds of thousands of BMWs, from 3 Series to 5 Series to just about every X5 sold is gonna have a B58. In fact, heck, even my mom has a B58 in her X5. She's put over 50,000 miles, let's call it pretty unforgiving miles on the engine, and the thing is just bulletproof. I know a lot of folks with over 150 on these engines, and they just seem to keep going. So look, I know that from a standpoint of reliability, a lot of comments say, well, it should be an LS or it should be a Toyota-sourced engine, but I'm hoping that this BMW unit's gonna be pretty strong. All right, folks, so I'm here with Mark. Mark, thanks for having me come by.
No problem.
I really appreciate it. And this is the first Grenadier in Colorado.
That's correct. Yeah,
that's
first
really
one.
Cool. So tell me about your process on buying this vehicle. You know, when did you submit your interest, and how long has the process been?
So when I got home from picking up the Grenadier, I went and I just searched my Gmail. I searched Grenadier just to see like when the very first instance of any talk about it or any communication. And I originally put in my request for more info from them in September of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And when did you take delivery?
I took delivery on the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Okay, so you made it under the 2024 kind of start there.
Yeah, and before December too. So I know a lot of people are saying end of December was when they were hoping for it. I got mine in November. So.
And what did you come out of to purchase this vehicle? What were you in before?
So I was in a holdover 2011 FJ Cruiser.
Okay.
Yep, and it was something that I had bought knowing, you know, it was a holdover. I just wanted something that was a little more reliable than my Jeep, and I wanted something that was obviously capable for Colorado trails and off-roading that we do here.
Right. So, Mark, you've had quite a bit of seat time in this. How many miles are you up to?
Just under 1,600 on this right now, like 1,550 or so.
And before I give some of my impressions, because you live with this car, what are your driving impressions? What do you think of it on the road?
I love it on the road. The seating position is so awesome. You sit so high. Even a full-size truck where you're next to it at a light, it seems like you're looking down at them. And the jump down is already, you know, even getting out, people in the stock form, people have a hard time almost getting into this thing because it's tall. It's a tall seating position, but I'm also 6'5" and I'm tall to begin with, so it's nice for me to have the position, the headspace, you know, the room in here. It just feels really nice to drive.
Yeah, I mean, and I can tell you right off the bat, right, it's a pretty different driving experience than, for example, like that new Defender. The steering is very Wrangler-like.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
I mean, you got solid axle, it's a very slow steering box.
Yep.
But it's not scary. You know, it's not that vague. It's not that wandery. What do you think of the turning circle? I know that's been a big complaint for a lot of folks.
The turning circle is something that is going to be interesting to get when we get on tighter trails and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
However, you know, it's not the end of the world. You got to maybe do a 2-point turn to get into a parking spot if you're around town. But the one thing that I'm most looking forward to taking this on to see how it is going to be Black Bear Pass on the switchbacks.
Okay.
Because
what got you excited about that?
Well, just because of the turning radius, I know it's going to be a big workout. I'll make sure to stretch before that.
Yeah, make sure you don't do any arm days before that day. Yeah,
exactly. Now, so yeah, I think that the turning radius is definitely something that a lot of people are noticing, and there's really no way of hiding it. It's definitely it's a big turning radius for sure. It's pretty long.
Now what? Now, the Defender 110 is a physically larger vehicle than that Grenadier in a lot of metrics, especially length. It's about 6 inches longer, even if you account for both of the spare tires, which is pretty interesting. And on paper, it also has more ground clearance, up to about 11.5 in its highest off-road height. But of course, that's going to change because the Defender is available with height-adjustable suspension. Now, approach and departure angles are also slightly better on paper with the Defender than the Grenadier, but breakover is worse because the wheelbase is quite a bit longer than the Ineos. What do you say, Mark?
I say Ineos.
Ineos? That's what I say too. I'm going with Ineos. I've heard it many ways though. Now, when we talk about length on the Grenadier, it's about 191.2. And of course, it's got a fixed steel spring suspension, and the whole suspension design is completely different. It's got solid axle front and back versus the Independent on the Land Rover. And look, there's no getting around it, right? If you look at the Grenadier and you compare it to an old Defender, the design is fairly similar. Trust me, there have been lawsuits, but Grenadier, they've made it through. They're selling these things in the US. So look, I was really skeptical whether or not these guys were gonna make it, but clearly they have, which is awesome. Now let's talk about the interior of the Defender. Okay, I think Land Rover just nailed this interior. They did such a good job modernizing an old design with this kind of pass-through that allows you to access the area behind the infotainment screen. Looks very rugged. You got a little grab handle here in this cool, durable material. And I love the fact you can get this vehicle with vinyl floors. You can get this vehicle with a third seat in the front, like a bench seat. So there's a lot of really cool touches in here. And it also feels really premium. We've got a lot of high-tech features. Adaptive cruise control, we have heated seats, heated steering wheel, ventilated seats. So it's a good combination of rugged, like the exposed heads, but also a little bit of luxury. Now, as we step inside the Grenadier, things are a little bit different. Pricing wise, believe it or not, these two vehicles can be spec'd dead even. The Land Rover can actually get more expensive if you get like a fully loaded V8, but it also starts at less money. It starts at about $60,000, where a Grenadier is going to start, in the $70,000 territory. But from a comfort standpoint, this is an interesting mix of luxury. This is the Field Master, so we've got some luxury trim like this brown leather-wrapped steering wheel, these really, really fantastic leather-wrapped Recaro seats. And then we also have a lot of ruggedness in here. So Ineos has really dedicated themselves to the hard physical controls and buttons. Heated seats are a physical button, and all of the overhead switches. Look at them all. For auxiliary switches for your locking disc, it's all going to be overhead. And I also like these roof panels. Now, you don't get a cluster in front of the steering wheel, and maybe it doesn't feel quite as premium as what Land Rover's doing, but I have to say, from a build quality standpoint, this thing is it's like a piece of granite in here. It's really, really well assembled. So let's talk about quality for a second, because look, someone cross-shopping this vehicle might be cross-shopping with the Defender. They might be cross-shopping with like a fully loaded Wrangler 392 or, Bronco Raptor, or even like a Mercedes G on the upper end. And this is an unknown brand for everybody in the States. What has your quality experience been like? Have you had any issues? You want to talk a little bit about that?
So as far as like, internally switches, steering wheel, pedals, everything, all that's all been fine. I haven't really had any issues. There's been a few little things. One time I turned the car on, and it told me that my key battery was low. And this was 3 weeks after I got it. I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. So I turned it off, turned it back on. It was fine.
Cleared it. Okay.
Cleared it.
Interesting.
Little things like a couple times my tire pressure sensors came on. You know, and then after a mile or two, they turn back off again. You know, it's just kind of like weird little software things, little software bugs, I'm sure, that will get fixed with updates, you know, as time progresses. But other than that, like, there hasn't been any major, there's been no major mechanical issues. I haven't had anything fail on me. There's, you know, you know, with the Safari windows, you know, there's maybe a little bit of wind noise, but I mean, once you hit 80, 85, what doesn't have wind noise?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what do you expect? So, and especially driving around in a box. Yeah, other than those few things with the, you know, with the TPMS and the key battery kind of thing, it's been fine.
One thing I'm like initially impressed with is just the complete lack of squeaks and rattles.
Yeah.
You know, when you think of a new brand, right, and some of the troubles that brands like Tesla had when they first launched in the US with quality, and you compare it to this, I mean, it is like a bank vault in here. Yeah. It's so quiet.
So solid, and just shutting the doors. I mean, we slammed the hood up there.
Yes, right.
It's just the best clunk you've ever heard, aside from maybe a G-Wagon. Yeah, pretty close.
Aside from maybe a G, yeah, exactly. So Land Rover has a swing open gate on the Defender, and that's going to reveal about 34 cubic feet worth of space, a super usable trunk area. You can also lower the suspension for easier access, you know, for your furry friends to get in and out. Very durable material on the back of the seats. It's actually a larger trunk than the Grenadier, and what's really cool about Land Rover is they offer not only the 110 but the 90, so you can get the short wheelbase, or the 130 if you've got a big family. Lots of flexibility from a trunk standpoint. The big door, you know, you do need a lot of space to swing this open, and of course you've got that spare mounted on the door as well, but super usable trunk. So the storage area in the Grenadier is about 31.4 cubic feet, and they go at it very differently than the Land Rover. So you got this little mini trunk that you can open to get stuff in and out quickly, and then if you want, you know, you got bigger items to carry, you can swing open the full gate. Now this is also one thing which is nice, a very ruggedized material. You know, you can see on the backs of the seats, slide things in and out, you're not going to damage it, but it's definitely smaller and a little bit harder to access than the Land Rover, especially with liftover height. This is a tall height. Mark, what I'm really interested in, and I've driven this engine in a lot of applications, but there really seems to be, as you mentioned, like a complete lack of lag, right? And when people think turbos, they probably think of like 1980s turbos, where you have to wait till 4,000 RPM, which is not what you want in a four-wheel drive. Right. But this engine, at least at slow speeds, feels super responsive even at lower RPMs.
Yep, that's exactly.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. The other thing I'm noticing too is the windows are huge. So you get really good visibility. Maybe not so much out the back because you got kind of that pillar in the middle.
Yeah, the back is, but you know what? Give me one SUV or one off-roading vehicle with a tire on the back that you can't
you're going to see out the back very
just,
well.
You know, you just kind of.
That's true. No. I mean, from a driving standpoint, like I kind of was expecting. The steering is very numb and a little slow, but the throttle response is excellent. You get a little bit more engine feedback, a little bit more noise from the engine than maybe a BMW because lack of sound deadening. Exactly. But 8-speed transmission is also very proven, ZF. Now, what about the tech? So one of the things that's been a hot button issue, I talked to Adam in a previous video, I'd love to get your impression, is the ADAS functionality and this speed warning that alerts you every time you go over 30. What's been your impression on that?
So when I got in my vehicle, when I got in this thing, the very first day I had it, I started coming home from the dealer and I'm like, what is all this racket? Like, what is this noise? And like, I'm trying to figure out, you know, where it's coming from, what, like, it's just, you know, the speed limit sign is flashing, the lights on the screen, like, what is this stuff? So yeah, after digging around through these settings, there's this, what it does is it senses the you know, it reads the speed limit signs and then puts them on the screen, and if you're going over that speed limit, then it blinks, and it sounds like a really loud blinker, and you can't really, I mean, you can adjust it, but it doesn't seem to do much. So yeah, every single time I get in, I've got a favorite button here stored, so I hit that favorite button and immediately go and turn just that off. I mean, everything else, the lane key, the lane drift or whatever they call it, that works okay, and it's not nearly as invasive and loud. It's definitely... It's
just a speed limit thing.
It's just a speed limit thing that's annoying, yeah.
look, I know in the off-road community, a lot of folks think that Land Rover maybe made the wrong decision by going the unibody independent suspension route on the Defender. I'm not one of those people. Initially I was, and I am an old school solid axle guy at heart, but the new Defender was the right choice for the brand. And the sales numbers reflect it. These things are selling extremely well. And from the owners I've talked to, folks are extremely happy with them. And a lot of it's because this is a far more usable vehicle than the old Defender ever was. The old Defender was cramped and slow and pretty unsafe, if we're being honest, and just not a good vehicle for driving on the road because it has its roots in a vehicle that was intended for really farm use, right? Whereas this new Defender is far more capable on the pavement. And as Americans, we spend 99% of the time on the pavement, so that's where Land Rover is going to design their vehicle for. Now, what's worth noting about the new Defender is even though it is incredibly competent on road, it also has a lot of off-road capability. Land Rover builds, in my opinion, one of, if not the best, full-time four-wheel drive systems on the market. The programming, the integration with the terrain modes, if you get the locking rear diff like this one has, it's all automatic. It's just beautifully integrated and it works so well, and it allows this vehicle to go places that the typical Defender owner will likely never go. I don't think it's a Wrangler Rubicon in terms of capability. It just doesn't have perhaps some of the articulation or the protection you need to really hit the Rubicon trail, but it's amazing where a Defender will go, especially with a good set of tires. These are extremely capable vehicles. Now, one area where Land Rover just excels over Ineos is the comfort standpoint. This is a more comfortable, refined vehicle. The engine is far more isolated from the cabin. It's very unintrusive. In the Grenadier, you can hear the engine come through the cabin when you accelerate. It's a lot quieter in here, right? There's more sound deadening. This is a more refined vehicle. This feels like a luxury experience, whereas I'm not sure the Grenadier feels like a luxury experience. It's really amazing how differently these vehicles perform. Let's talk about the engine in the Defender. So on paper, they're both 3-liter turbocharged inline sixes, but we're looking at over 100 more horsepower. What's that, like 113 more horsepower? And when you floor it in the Defender, oh my God. I mean, this thing hauls ass. It is quick. You know, that Ineos is plenty quick for what it is, which is a solid axle box. But this vehicle is a properly quick SUV, even by like Mercedes or BMW standards. Now let's talk about value. So this Defender is spec'd at about $82,000. Defender S County Appearance Package, active locking diff, all the off-road stuff. That Grenadier is spec'd in the high 80s. So this is actually a more affordable vehicle as spec'd. It's a more powerful vehicle. It's got some more comfort and convenience features. It's missing some of the hardware, off-road hardware, that Grenadier has. Like, this vehicle doesn't have integrated rear recovery points. It doesn't have the same skid plates as the Ineos. It doesn't have a front locking diff. So if you're looking at an off-road value standpoint, that Ineos is better value from an off-road tech standpoint. If you're looking for comfort and drivability and on-road drivability, well, the Defender's just better. Height adjustable air suspension. This is a much more comfortable vehicle. You know, it's got more comfort and convenience features, adaptive cruise control, right? So it depends how you define value. We also have that brand question. Land Rover is an established brand. We know where it fits into the marketplace. Ineos is not. It's just brand new. We don't know if folks are going to view it as a premium product. Is it going to be in the same line in people's mindset as like a G-Wagon cruising down Beverly Hills, or is it going to be more in the same line of a Wrangler? It's hard to put it into its context where it lies. On road, the Land Rover's better. It's quieter, it's quicker, the steering is way better, the ride is softer, it's a more comfortable experience. But from a coolness standpoint, I don't know. It's a really interesting question. I think that this is a cool Defender spec with the steel wheels. They're actually alloy, but the 20-inch steel wheels and the County package. This is a cool vehicle, and it feels like an upper-end classy luxury experience. The Grenadier, maybe not so much, but then it's got this amazing, like, hardcore off-roadiness about it, which is almost undescribable. I think they're both great vehicles. They're both targeting very different environments, very different groups of folks, but I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. This has been Tommy, behind the camera Cole, and a huge thank you to Mark for letting us use his vehicle today. We'll see you in another episode.